Hello and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Death Korp of Krieg tactics video. So before we get into today's video, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Kirill Lebimov, I hope I am pronouncing that correctly, for sending in some awesome pictures of his Death Korp of Krieg in a fierce battle against some, of course, traitor Imperial fists. Apparently the battle was an absolute bloodbath, although I suspect the Death Korp of Krieg wouldn't have it any other way. Really like the colour scheme you've gone for on these guys. Especially the Death Rider mounts. That red flesh on the Death Rider mounts really interesting. So thanks for sending these pictures in. If anyone else has got any cool pictures that they want me to use in my videos, please post them on my Facebook page. There will be a link down in the description below. So without further ado, let's get on with today's video. Which, guys, we've come to the end of the series. We are going to be looking at the final units that the Death Korp Krieg have access to, which is Super Heavies. I've really enjoyed doing this series, and so I think ending on a bit of a bang by going through the Super Heavies is a really good way to end it. If there's anyone has any other ideas for series of videos they want me to do, please post them down below. If you think there's anything that I've missed in the Death Korp that you think should be covered, put it in the comment section and I will take a look. So without further ado, let's have a look at what the Death Korp of Krieg can get their hands on. So they have access to 11 Lords of War. Okay, and the first one that they have access to is the Arcurian pattern Shadowsword. That's an interesting one. So this thing is a proper super heavy. It's not like some of the ones we've seen in the heavy support slot. This is a proper super heavy, and it comes with all the things that you would expect. So it comes with adamantium tracks. It can take lots of sponsons. It can take 2 twin heavy bolter sponsons. It has, interestingly, that doesn't seem to appear that it comes with the las cannons. It's just the 2 twin heavy bolter sponsons. Interestingly, it has a hunter killer missile. It can take one. It can take a heavy stubber and a storm bolter, and it comes with a twin heavy bolter in the hull and a volcano cannon. So it's like a normal shadow sword, but comes with an interesting couple of little things. Okay, so it has the special rule explode super heavy. So if this model is reduced to 0 wounds, roll a d6 for removing it from the battlefield. On a 6, it explodes, and each unit within 2d6 suffers d6 mortal wounds. Fairly normal. Has shadow sword targeters. Add 1 to hit rolls you make for this model for shooting attacks that target Titanic units. Comes with smoke launchers, and it has the steel behemoth rules, which are the same for all the Baneblades. Now it comes with 26 wounds, and it has a movement range of 10. It brackets at 13 wounds, where its movement goes down to 7, and then it brackets again at 6 wounds, where its movement goes down to 4, and its ballistic skill falls from 4+ to 5+ to 6+, and the attacks fall from 9 to 6 to 3. So unlike normal vehicles where the attacks really go quite random, go from sort of 3 to D3 to 1, even though it's low bracket, this thing is putting out 3 attacks. Surprisingly, its weapon skills are 5+, and that never changes. So as with any super heavy, this is a general rule to keep in mind going forward, they're surprisingly effective in close combat, especially when you combine it with the stratagem Crush Them, which means that a turn that you charge with it hits on 2s. So remember that. It comes with, like we said, adamantium tracks, so it's actually in close combat, it's AP -2 and it does D3 damage. It comes with that twin heavy bolter, which has its double shot heavy bolter, basically heavy 6, strength 5, AP -1, and it comes with the volcano cannon, which is an absolutely fantastic weapon. It's 120 inch range, heavy D6, 16, strength 16, AP -5, 2d6 damage, and you can reroll failed wound rolls when targeting Titanic units with this weapon. So I'm just going to take a look, because I think this is a couple of key differences over a regular shadow sword. Okay, well, first key difference is that the sponsors you can take for it, you can only take one set of 2 twin heavy bolters, which only costs you 28 points. So the interesting thing about the Arcturian pattern Shadowsword is it's quite cheap. I mean, you're not paying for stuff that you necessarily don't want. I mean, when you're buying a Shadowsword, you're buying it for the volcano cannon. You're not really buying it for the las cannon sponsons. And if you do want to add a bit of extra anti-infantry, you're buying the sponsons for the heavy bolters. So the fact that on this thing you can take essentially 6 heavy bolters, two twins on the sides and 1 on the front, that's a decent amount of shots. That's 18 heavy bolter shots. The fact that you're basically getting what is a more, I'd say, concentrated, a more dedicated Shadowsword is interesting. But I think because it's Forge World, I think that its volcano cannon is slightly different to a regular volcano cannon. So if I take a look, no, I'm wrong. Apologies for that. No, the Shadowsword is still just heavy D6. So, okay, fair enough. So I've just gone and checked my codex, guys, and in the codex version of the Shadowsword, it says the volcano cannon is heavy 3D3, which is what I thought it was. So I'm not sure if this is a mistake on Battlescribe, but if it is, I'm going to leave it in because it still shows some useful information that maybe don't always rely on Battlescribe. But or maybe I don't know if this is just the fact that the Death Korp of Krieg only have access to the Forge World Shadow Swords and Arcturian Shadow Swords. But according to Battlescribe, the ones that the Death Korp of Krieg have access to only have access to the old version, which is the heavy D6. So interesting to keep that in mind. Okay, I'd like, if someone knows, I'd really appreciate putting down in the comment section to clarify for myself and for anyone else who watches this video. Do the Death Korp of Krieg have access to their own kind of Shadow Sword, and or is it a mistake in Battlescribe? It'd be interesting to know either way. So but according to for what I've got here, the Arcturian pattern Shadow Sword is the old version, which is the heavy D6. So, but apart from that, like I say, it looks like it's a stripped down Shadow Sword. Now, you've also then got access to the Arcturian pattern Stormblade. Now, this is an interesting one. So, it comes with all the usual stuff, adamantium tracks. It comes with a heavy bolter, interestingly. Hunter killer missile, 2 las cannons. You can put the usual pintle mounts on it. It comes with a plasma blast gun, and then 2 twin heavy bolters and another twin heavy bolter. So this thing has got loads of heavy bolters. I think, it's absolutely decked out of heavy bolters. And you can give it the usual sponsors, which is the 2 las cannon and twin heavy bolter sponsors, or 2 las cannon and twin heavy flamer sponsors. Now, looking at the stats for this thing, it's a Baneblade chassis, so it's all the same stats as the last one. So same movement, degradation, attacks, wounds, toughness. If I didn't mention it, strength 9, toughness 8 on all the Baneblade chassis with a 3-up save. Now, like I said, it comes with the adamantium tracks, and it doesn't have the targeters that the Shadowsword has, but the main thing with this one is it comes with a plasma blast gun. Now, this is an interesting weapon, to say the least. So, the plasma blast gun, standard, when it's not been overcharged, is 72-inch range, which is really good, same range as the battle cannon. It's heavy 2d6. Strength 8, AP -3, flat 2 damage all the time. Even when it's not overcharged, it's flat 2 damage. If you overcharge, the range goes up to 96 inches. It still stays heavy 2d6, but it goes up to strength 9. It keeps its AP -3, but goes to damage 3. And for each roll of a 1, the bearer suffers 1 mortal wound after all the weapon shots have been resolved. So, it's not like you overcharge it and it explodes and kill itself if you get 1-1. No, it's like the Lehman Russ. It just takes the 1 mortal wound for each 1 that you roll. So that's really good. That's really, that's interesting to keep an eye on. If you bear in mind that if you just take this thing stock, you don't put any frills or trills on it, it's 480 points. That's not too bad. The thing you have to ask yourself is, though, that this thing's gun puts out the same damage as a Lehman Russ Executioner when it's overcharging. The Lehman Russ Executioner is like 130 points. So you can get 3 Lehman Russ Executioners for one of these Arcturian pattern Stormblades and have 90 points change. And so you could probably take 3 Lehman Russes decked out fact, you could take 3 Leman Russ Executioners with twin plasma sponsons and end up with 66 and 63 plasma shots for cheaper than an Arcturian pattern Stormblade. The only thing the Arcturian has over that is it can go up to strength 9, which isn't insignificant, and it can be flat 3 damage. That's and it has the greater range, but it has significantly less damage output. So ask yourself, do you want more still very good shots, or a few quite incredible shots? That's what you have to decide. So moving on to the next one, you've got the standard Baneblade. Now I'm not going to go over this too much. It's a Baneblade. It's the quintessential super heavy. It doesn't muck about. It's got a big old cannon. It comes with the thing to note about Baneblade patterns and what I would call like Shadowsword patterns, the other kind of super heavy, is whilst they look very similar, there is a key difference. The Baneblade, the main super heavies that the guard get, come with an inbuilt Demolisher cannon as well, which you do have to pay for, but is a significant boost in firepower. So a Baneblade stock, and it comes with an auto cannon in the turret. So you've got an extra auto cannon, an extra Demolisher cannon, then you've got your twin heavy bolters, you've got the Baneblade cannon itself, and you can add pintle mounts, hunter killer, and you can also add in your 2 las cannons, your twin heavy bolter sponsons, the usual jazz. Baneblades are fantastic. I think if you're going to include a super heavy in your army, the Baneblade is the one to just default to. It's gone down in points recently, and they are actually really good. Now, they will, in most competitive games, get targeted and die turn 1. However, it will normally take your opponent's entire army to bring it down. So if you can accept the fact that it's going to die, and you think, I was going to lose about 400 points in my opponent's opening salvo anyway, then it's worth it. Depending on how your army's built, then it's worth it. If you don't think you're going to lose about 400 points in the first turn, then it's probably not worth it. Okay? But just so you know, the Baneblade cannon, it's heavy 3d6, which is an incredible amount of shots. Strength 9, AP minus 3, flat 3 damage. It does everything that the 70 range. It does everything that the Arcturian Stormblade does, but better, quite frankly. The Gorgon heavy transport. Now this is an interesting one. This is a super heavy, but it's a transport, so its offensive capabilities are fairly limited. It does come with an interesting unique weapon, which is the Gorgon mortar, which comes with 2 of those. These can be swapped out for 4 heavy bolters, or 4 heavy flamers, or 4 heavy stubbers if you want to keep it really cheap. It comes with 2 heavy stubbers base, so you could put on this thing 6 heavy stubbers. That's a lot of stub. So keep that in mind. You can amazingly put a hunter killer missile on it. Now, this thing, like I said, it's a bit of a beast. It's for transporting just an insane amount of guys. So, special rules wise, it explodes like everyone else. It has a heavy armoured prow, so it has a 5+ invulnerable save against shooting attacks, which is actually really good. Everyone clamours for the Baneblade to have an invulnerable save, and this thing has one. So that's really important to note. It means that people hitting anything that's over AP minus 3, which is a traditional anti-tank weapon, is wasting that AP. It comes with smoke launchers. It comes with steel behemoth, so you can't be trapped in combat. Without them stop it from firing, but you don't really care about that because it's not there for the guns. It comes with 30 wounds, so 4 more than a Baneblade. It's toughness 8 still, 3+ save, strength 9. It's not good in combat though. It's only got 5 attacks, which goes down to 3 attacks, which goes down to D3. It degrades at the same level as a regular Baneblade though, which is interesting. So at 30 wounds to 14 wounds, it's 30 wounds. Sorry, I'm looking at this the wrong way. At 30 wounds, yeah, it doesn't degrade until it's been. So it still keeps that. It still degrades at 13 wounds, which is interesting. So that's interesting to keep in mind. It's got those fortune wounds, but it degrades at the same level. Now this thing can transport 50 infantry in one go. That's right, 50, not 15, not 15, 50. It can transport a full platoon. That is, for some Imperial Guard commanders, that's all your infantry in one go. It can transport it. So like I said, this thing is a super heavy transport and it doesn't muck about. Now the Gorgon mortars, for anyone that's curious about that unique weapon, a 48 inch range, heavy 2d6, and it has because of two of these things, so that's 4d6 shots. Strength 5, 8 -1, 1 damage. Units attacked by this weapon do not gain bonuses to their of cover. So it's kind of like you got random number of shots over 4 heavy bolters, so maybe it's better, maybe it's worse, but it's the same damage, but you don't get a cover save from it, which is quite good actually. That's not to be sniffed at. The Gorgon, I think, is a quintessential Death Korp of Krieg unit. If you're thinking of doing a mech assault Death Korp of Krieg, you kind of owe it to yourself to at least have a Gorgon. And to be honest, you probably want 2. 2 Gorgons, load them up with bare bones infantry and spend the rest on tanks. Maybe. Or at least 1. Do it with just 1 and it'd still be funny as hell. So the next one, you get the Macharius heavy tank. Now I've talked about the Macharius in previous videos. The Macharius series of super heavies, I'll be honest, are probably the most competitive. I think they're a sleeper unit. I think they're a bit of a hidden gem. Not necessarily the Macharius heavy tank. We'll get on to the next one, after this, which is the Macharius Vanquisher. The Macharius Vulcan. But the Macharius heavy tanks, they are not as durable as a Baneblade, but they are significantly cheaper, about 100 points cheaper on average. So that is not insignificant. So the Macharius heavy tank itself, like I said, it only has 22 wounds. That's 4 wounds less. Okay, but it has the same toughness and it has the same armor save. Okay, so you're saving 100 points and you're getting just 4 less wounds at this point. Now, the weapon it's armed with isn't as good. The Macharius battle cannon, it's only heavy 2d6 versus the Baneblade's heavy 3d6. It's only strength 8 versus the Baneblade's strength 9. It's only 8 -2 versus the Baneblade's 8 -3. But it is d6 damage, which means in theory, on average, it's doing slightly more damage per shot than the Baneblade, because the Baneblade's a flat 3, whereas the Macharius' average is 3.5. So it's not, for every 6 wounds that for every 2 shots that a Baneblade gets through, it does 6 damage. For every 2 shots that a Macharius battle cannon gets through, it does 7. So it's not a huge improvement, but it is 13% improvement potentially when you look at it that way. So it's not to be, it's not to be forgotten about. Considering these days you've got like custom regiments, or you've got command points. If we're talking specifically about Death Korp of Krieg, that you can make sure you're getting the reliable number of shots with that thing. It's not to be underestimated. And bear in mind, again, this thing is just 357 points. You can give it. It comes with 2 heavy stubber sponsons, which can keep it nice and cheap. If you want to actually give it some damage, you can give it 2 heavy bolters, and you can give it another heavy stubber. But it comes with, to make this a nice cheap super heavy, you can essentially stick 5 heavy stubbers and a Macharius battle cannon on it. And the battle cannon will be slugging tanks, and the heavy stubbers will be chipping away infantry. And you ask any AdMech player, when you're an AdMech player, you have access to a lot of heavy stubbers. I mean, it probably should be something better than a heavy stubber, but we won't get into that now. So, those AdMech gunboats, the transport ones, which have got like 4 stubbers each, if you watch battle reports, those things, if someone's running 2 or 3 of those heavy stubbers really start racking up kills because they're just chucking out lead. And the same thing applies to heavy stubber spam with the guard. So the next one you've got after that is the Macharius Omega. Now, this is a really weird vehicle. I'm not going to lie, I've never seen one used, and I don't know a huge amount of it. It's got all the same rules as a regular Macharius. By the way, the Macharius does have the steel behemoth rule, so it can't be locked in combat and stopped from shooting. It comes with the Omega pattern plasma blast gun, and it has maximal bolts and an alternative firing mode for pulsed bolts. So the maximal bolts are heavy 2d6, strength 9, 8 -3, 3 damage each. For each roll of a 1, the bearer suffers 1 mortal wound after the weapon has been fired. And the pulsed bolts, same again, heavy 2d6, both got 6 inch range, but this one's got 1 less strength and 1 less damage. So it's kind of like a cheap version of the Arcturian Stormblade. Am I right? Yeah, it's a cheaper version of the Arcturian Stormblade. The Arcturian Stormblade is 480 points. The Macharius Omega is 355 points. But doesn't come... Oh no, it can take the usual heavy stubbers, heavy flames, or it can take some autocannon sponsors, interestingly. But it doesn't come with as much mini weaponry. You're basically paying for the plasma blast gun, and as we've established, you can get probably better bang for your buck from taking plasma Lehman Russes. The next one now, I'm actually going to talk about the Macharius Vulcan next, just quickly, because it's basically a non-star. We can just get it out of the way. Macharius Vulcan, the coolest looking Macharius, but unfortunately, like with any Vanquisher cannon, the worst Macharius, the worst variant. The Macharius Vanquisher comes with the usual 2 heavy stubbers, comes with a twin heavy stubber. You can give it a pint or heavy stubber. You can give it a hunter killer. They've all got the same options, but the weapon stats are the Vanquisher shells. So it's not too bad. Actually, you know what? The Macharius Vanquisher is not too bad. It comes with 2 fire modes. It comes with armor piercing shells and blast shells, which is what the old Vanquishers always used to come with, by the way. If you go back and look at some 3rd and 4th edition Guard codexes, the Vanquisher used to cost more, but it used to be able to have the choice of loading armor piercing shells. This vehicle has managed to retain that ability throughout all these editions. So the armor piercing shells are what you would expect. They're not very good because they're the Vanquisher shells. 72 inch range, only 2 shots. For a vehicle that only hits on a 4+, that's kind of rubbish. Strength 9, 8 -3 is alright. D6 damage, roll 2 dice for inflicting damage with this weapon, discard the lowest result. Okay. Or you can put the blast shells in where it becomes heavy, becomes the Macharius battle tank. It's heavy 2d6, strength 8, 8 -2, D3 damage. So the difference between these two vehicles, the Vanquisher and the heavy tank, is 15 points. So you pay 15 points for the privilege of being able to fire a worse round. It's not worth it, unfortunately. Now we want to talk about the Macharius Vulcan. And the Macharius Vulcan is genuinely good and genuinely competitive. And if I have considered taking a bit of a meme list to a tournament where I take 3 of these things, because I think that could actually be very, very powerful. So the Macharius Vulcan is the Gatling gun variant. So it comes with the usual, you can take heavy stubbers on it, blah, blah, blah. 22 wounds, blah, blah, blah. Strength 8, strength 8, toughness 8, 3+ save. It then comes with the Macharius Vulcan Mega Bolter, which has got a 60-inch range, so it got that range. It's heavy 15, strength 6, AP -2, flat 2 damage. What's so good about that, you say? Well, if this thing doesn't move, it gets changed to heavy 30. That's really good. That's really, really good. Now, it's okay with the Death Korp of Krieg, and I'm not going to go off too much of a tangent, but with something like Cadian, the Macharius Vulcan starts getting a little silly, especially when you think about the current meta, which is armies basically revolving around like a key super unit. If you take 3 of these Macharius Vulcans, that's 90 shots. If you're Cadian, you can easily get those things hitting on a +1, so that's hitting on a 3+. That means you hit with 60 shots with these things. Then even if you're shooting something like that, they would be wounding on 5 against, that's 20 wounds. And if the enemy doesn't, enemy fails like half the saves, it's got some sort of invulnerable save, these things can get 20 wounds through in one go. These things can do the better part. Between them, they can basically kill the better part of a knight a turn. That's not insignificant at all. These things are genuinely very, very good. And this is if you're pointing them at knights. I mean, what if you pointed them at primaires? These things are designed to just shred primaires like there's no tomorrow. They're really, really good. If you want to include a cool, unique deathcore style super heavy, and you want it to be competitive and not be a drain on your force, you want to choose the Macharius Vulcan, and that's what is in the pictures of sent in by Kirill today. They are that's Macharius Vulcan. So, and I guarantee that thing, if your opponent doesn't take it off the board first turn, it's going to start racking up the kills very quickly. So that would be, out of all the super heavies we're talking today, that or the Baneblade would be the two that I recommend you actually get for your Krieg army. And if you don't want it to be a hindrance, you want it to actually be a boon. But even then, I'd probably say the Macharius Vulcan over the Baneblade. That's how strongly I feel about the Macharius Vulcan. I think it's very, very good when utilised properly. Shadowsword. So before that, we've got the Malcador artillery tank. This is basically two basilisks strapped together. So it's got a couple of cool special rules. So it's got 22 wounds like the Macharius. It has the usual explode. It has the smoke launchers. It's got steel behemoth, which is great, which means it can't be tagged. And it has the heavily armoured front, which means it actually gets a 5+ invulnerable save. Unlike a Basilisk, it's actually toughness 8 as well, which is fantastic. So it's got the same number of wounds as 2 Basilisks, but it's got the extra, and the same gun as 2 Basilisks, but it's got the extra toughness, and it can't be locked up in combat, and it has a 5+ invulnerable save. You're actually getting quite a lot. You're actually getting quite a lot for this. For the twin Earthshaker cannon, it's got the 214 inch range. It's got heavy 2d6. It's strength 9, AP -3, D3 damage, just like a Basilisk. And when you roll 4 dice from finds weapon and discard the 2 lowest results, this weapon can target units that are not visible to the bearer. So someone, I think, did the maths on this, and I could be wrong, but I remember when I was doing my research in this vehicle, and the math hammer for rolling for the Malcador is actually superior to having 2 separate Basilisks. Okay, now I could be wrong on that, but that is what when I was doing my research, that is what I saw when people were debating and discussing this thing. It actually came up fairly recently on Bolt and Chainsword. So it is good, but it does cost 296 points. Okay, now it comes with all the same firepower as 2 Basilisks, but it is 70 points more expensive, 80 points more expensive, I think. 80 points more expensive, yeah. So for your 80 points more, okay, you have to decide whether having the extra toughness is worth it, and having the 5+ vulnerable save is worth it, and having the very slightly statistically better damage output. That's what your 80 points is buying you. Also, it's easier to conceal because it's one vehicle. Okay, so it's a smaller footprint. So you do, but I think it might be slightly overpriced, just slightly. But I think it's not so overpriced that it gets dismissed instantly. I think it is actually very much worth considering the Malcador artillery tank. Very much. In fact, I'm probably going to do a separate video on this just to cover it, because I am actually quite interested by this. Is again like a hidden gem unit. You know, just taking one of these things, sticking it in the back, pounds away every turn. I think you'd be surprised how quickly it gets its points back. Then the Death Korp Krieg have access to the regular Shadowsword. It's like the Arcturian pattern, except for if you want to take sponsors, you have to pay for las cannons that you might not necessarily want, so be aware of that. And the last one is the Stormsword, and Stormsword is kind of like, I mean, I just want to double check that I'm thinking of the right one. Yeah, the Stormsword's all right. It's all right. The Stormsword, you know, it's okay. It's like a normal super heavy. You know, it's got the normal super heavy stuff. But this is not a Macharius chassis. This is a Baneblade chassis. It's got 26 wounds, not 22. It's toughness 8. It's got the extra strength. It's got 3+ save. Adamantium tracks, heavy bolters. You can give it all the extra gubbins that you normally want to. What we're looking at here is the main cannon. It's got the Stormsword siege cannon. Now it's only got a 36-inch range, so this thing's got to get up close and personal. It's heavy 2d6. It's strength 10. It's AP -4, and it's d6 damage. Units attacked by this weapon do not gain any bonus to their saving throws for being in cover. You reroll damage rolls of 1 for this weapon. Now, it's not as good as a Shadowsword, but it is way cheaper. It's only 384 points. So if you want yourself a budget super heavy that looks scary and you want a Bane, and you don't want to pay Forge World prices, you want a Bane, you want a cheap, well, not cheap, but cheaper in real life money one, that's the Stormsword. But I don't rate it. I don't rate it at all. I wouldn't go for it. If you want a cheap super heavy that's going to do damage and not break the points bank, but it will probably break the real bank, get yourself a Macharius, specifically probably a Macharius Vulcan. Now, interestingly, the Korp of Krieg apparently do not get access to things like the Hellhammer, the Doom Hammer. They don't get access to the hammers. Or the Bane Sword. The Bane Sword's brilliant. I like the Bane Sword because it's basically, that is the budget. That is your budget Shadowsword, the Bane Sword. You don't get the Bane Hammer. Yeah, none of the hammers. None of the hammers, basically. I'm sure if there was a Bane Shovel in here, the Korp of Krieg would get access to it. So there you go, guys. Now, I'm not going to go into it too much. It's very difficult to decide whether including a super heavy in your army is worth it. It is genuinely difficult because they're just such big targets, and you have to ask yourself: am I playing in a meta which is hyper competitive? And if you are, then unfortunately, probably, and with the power creep that is 8th edition, a super heavy might not be worth it in terms of points. But there's one thing that can't be denied: super heavies are fucking cool. And I try to avoid swearing in these videos because I know they're watched by an all sort of range of ages, but super heavies are fucking cool. And that is something that you should always keep in mind. And bear in mind, if you are a player who's already decided, I'm going to play Korp of Krieg, you've already decided, I'm playing with one hand tied behind my back. You've already decided, I'm going to play the Rule of Cool army. And if you've already decided that, then there's nothing wrong with just going all in and just getting one of them super heavies as well. Now, I think, obviously, we've talked about the two styles of Korp of Krieg army. You've got the World War I infantry and artillery style army, and you've got the World War II Blitzkrieg style army. Obviously, these super heavies the majority of them tend to fit the latter, the World War II style army. But I would not dismiss the Gorgon transport if you're thinking of maybe having some kind of interwar, Korp of Krieg style army. A couple of Gorgon transports. I mean, to be fair, if you took 2 Gorgon transports and put a battalion in each one, that is the majority of your points. But you could probably then still have enough points for 3 tank commanders and have a great time. 100 infantry, 2 massive transports which are going to draw loads of firepower, and then 3 tank commanders. What's not to doing the fire support? It's a nice compact army. You can transport that around in one case. Things to consider, guys. Things to consider. So, or take take 2 Gorgon transports and another super heavy, and get yourself a super heavy detachment, and take your your 2 battalions alongside it. You could do that. So there you go, guys. That's my coverage of the super heavies. I haven't gone into a huge amount of detail. It's just important to note some of the restrictions that Korp of Krieg face. Like I said, it's difficult to go into the proper tactical applications because super heavies are so iffy when it comes to being actually worth it. They're very cool though. I've really enjoyed doing this series of videos. Now I know it's a fairly niche series, and but I have actually really enjoyed delving into a faction that, whilst very, very cool, you don't actually see that much of in real life. And what's absolutely fantastic is that, thanks to an extremely generous supporter of my channel, I now have access to the beginnings, the very significant, the beginnings and the middlings of a Korp of Krieg army. I've got basically 100 Korp infantry, which is, like I said, been gifted, which is extremely generous. And I need to, that, which means that once these videos are all done from sort of a unit review point of view, and we've gone and I have done at least some play testing on every aspect of each unit type. So on the transports, on the infantry, on the tanks, I have tested each one of these, at least a little bit, so I'm not just talking from a complete theory point of view. I don't necessarily, with the super heavies, I have a lot of experience using super heavies outside Death Korp of Krieg. My Mordians utilise my super heavies in the very similar way that the Death Korp of Krieg guys do. So, bear that in mind. So at least this series has been backed up by evidence and play testing. So although I will always say that I am not a Death Korp of Krieg expert. I just play them a little bit and I know a bit about them. But the best thing to do whenever you watch one of these videos, straight away you should go down to the comment section, because there are some really, really knowledgeable Death Korp of Krieg commanders that are part of the community surrounding this channel, and they always put down really, really great information in the comment section. So I always highly recommend that once on any of the videos of this series that you watch, go back and look at the comment section, because I guarantee if you've got a question, someone down there has put the information forward. And if you haven't, comment, and I am sure either myself or one of the sort of resident Death Korp experts will get back to you. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the series of videos. Moving on to the Stormtrooper ones next, and then after that, I'm not sure. So probably some fluff videos. But I hope you guys have enjoyed the series. If you've got any questions, please put it down in the comment section below. If I've missed anything, please put it down in the comment section below. And what I'm really interested to know is what's the deal with Battlescribe and the Victorian pattern Storm Shadowsword? That's really, and the regular Shadowsword. Really interested to know if that's a mistake there, or if on Battlescribe's part, or if it's meant to be like that and they have access to like the weird Forge World ones. I'm not sure, the weird Forge Vulcan is. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave lots of comments section, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.